844-500-4242. That's the toll-free number of the Howie Carr Show. You know, one of my favorite blogs is powerlineblog.com, and they have a bunch of really astute observers. I think they're all lawyers from Minneapolis, or used to live in Minneapolis. Some of them still do. And John Hinderaker wrote a great column yesterday, Après Trump, the deluge, meaning Louis XIV. He said, after me, the deluge. And John was talking about the immigration open borders that is being promised here. And John, I'm so glad to see people picking up on this. It hasn't gotten, I've written about it in my own columns in the Boston Herald, and we've talked about it on the air. But I mean, this is one of the most important accomplishments of the Trump years, I think, is getting the borders back under control with the travel ban and with the southern border being under control. And Biden says on his first day he's going to repeal both of those measures.
Well, that's right. He had 17 executive orders slated to be issued today, and one of them is to halt all construction on the border wall. He's got an amnesty plan that he's put out there, under which anybody who can show that he was in the country illegally as of January 1st is golden and will be given amnesty and put on a path to citizenship. And Howie, the path to citizenship, even if you get a green card, has been 5 years. But under the Biden plan, they're accelerating that to 3 years. And
what a coincidence, huh?
What a coincidence!
3 years will be. Let's see, that will be a leap year. And what do we do in leap years? We have, presidential elections.
Just in time for the 2024 election. Millions of votes from what are now illegal immigrants will be delivered if Biden's plan, of course, becomes law.
And as you pointed out, too, in 1986, and Reagan always said the amnesty in 1986 was the biggest mistake of his presidency, and I think there's no question about it. But they were supposed to, again, only grandfather people in who'd been there, but everybody came up with these fake documents. And listen, they can get the Puerto Rican driver's licenses, birth certificates. We see it in Massachusetts all the time. We write about it all the time. I mean, all they're going to need in this case is going to be a utility bill, or maybe not even a utility bill.
Most, Howie, and it's not like this is a big hurdle to get over. They just got to have some evidence that they were in the country as of January 1st, 2021. I mean, not exactly ancient history. I'm sure we'll bring the same careful security measures that we bring to our voting system to vet these folks.
You know, the other thing too, if you listen to what Biden was saying today, and I don't blame anyone who didn't listen. I just happened into it. But he's talking about we have to get Americans back to work. Yet on the other hand, he's also saying we're going to open the borders to all these people who have absolutely no skills, many of whom don't even want to work, but they're going to compete against all these unemployed Americans. And then he also says we're going to have to do something about COVID-19, but we're going to let in all these people who aren't wearing, they're coming up through Mexico on these caravans, which I call gravy trains. They're not wearing masks. These countries south of the border have a much higher rate of testing positive than we do. And so we're going to have, some Democrats want mandatory vaccinations. They want to keep the mask going forever, but they're going to let in all these illegal aliens that aren't wearing masks and are testing positive. How does this make any sense, John?
Howie, it doesn't. None of this makes any sense. Biden says we have to put Americans back to work. Well, guess what? Donald Trump did that. We have the lowest unemployment,
right,
the highest employment, especially for middle class and blue collar folks. We had rising wages. Of course, Biden wants to do the exact opposite of everything that Trump did that did succeed in putting Americans back to work. And on top of that, on top of all the terrible economic policies, $15 minimum wage, for example, make it illegal for anybody to work if he can't deliver $15 an hour plus, in benefit to his employer. So all of these things, as you say, they're all designed to unemploy more Americans. And if you really want to put Americans back to work, end the COVID shutdowns.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the minimum wage thing. I was going to get into that later in the day, but right now, John, you know this. You've done the reading. Right now, the national minimum wage for tipped workers is $2.13 an hour, $2.13 an hour, and that's because you make it up in tips. When I used to work as a tipped employee in Maine many years ago, it was 55 cents an hour. So that's how old I am. But so Joe Biden wants to raise the minimum wage from $2.13 an hour for tipped workers to $15 an hour. Do you think that's going to increase or decrease employment among tipped employees across the nation, John?
These poor restaurants and bars, they get shut down, then they're allowed to partly reopen, then they're shut down again, then maybe partly reopen. Thousands and thousands have gone out of business. And now the good news is at some point here you get to reopen. The bad news is you can't possibly make any money.
And I'm reading now from a column in the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Biden in the second debate told Donald Trump, there's no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. I guess he's never seen any stories, or maybe he's never visited San Francisco or Seattle, all those places on the West Coast that raised the minimum wage and destroyed all these mom and pop restaurants, not to mention independent bookstores and all other kinds of small businesses.
Howie, the laws of supply and demand have not been repealed. And there's no topic in the field of economics that has been studied more thoroughly than the baleful impacts of high minimum wage laws. If you keep the minimum wage below what's actually starting salaries for unskilled employees, teenagers in the workplace, it doesn't do any harm. But as soon as you raise it above that, you start unemploying people. And you start, people start replacing employees with kiosks and all the things that employers do to try to manage their costs. And ultimately, if they can't work around that kind of an extravagant minimum wage, they wind up going out of business.
But as we know, a lot of the unions base their wages. It's in the contract that they get. Like if the minimum wage is, they get 2 times the minimum wage, right? So this is a sop to unions, both in the public and the private sector. Although the unions now are predominantly public sector, So this is another payoff for union money.
Yeah, that's right. As the Democrats always do, they screw young people, especially minorities, to benefit their big source of money, which is the public sector unions.
So you got a column coming out today. I don't think it's posted yet. You're going to give us an assessment, your assessment of Trump's years. And I wrote him a thank you note. I thanked him for a bunch of things in the Boston Herald. Rush read some of it today. I think it was a tremendous success, and I think you think it was more of a success than even some of your fellow scribes at powerlineblog.com.
Howie, I published that post about 20 minutes ago, and the title of it is Trump Fought the Swamp and the Swamp Won. Oh. You're old enough, Howie, to remember that song.
I sure am.
Yeah,
we used to play that song whenever a Massachusetts House Speaker would be convicted of a felony. It got a lot of play for Bobby Fuller for. We gave him a lot of royalties over the years.
Right. Bobby Fuller. I fought the law and the law won. Trump fought the swamp and the swamp won. What I say in the post, Howie, is that in my opinion, Trump was pretty easily our best president since Ronald Reagan. And I walked through his various accomplishments, and you know them all. You've recited the list many times, both domestic policy and foreign policy, just like Reagan. Huge successes in both spheres. And yet, whereas Reagan carried 49 states when he ran for re-election, Trump was unable to get a second term. And that's partly due to COVID. Obviously, I think if it hadn't been for COVID, he would have gotten reelected. And it certainly is partly due to the incredible, unremitting hate that he got from the swamp, from the establishment, including, number one on the list, the Russia collusion hoax, which they perpetrated by Hillary Clinton, picked up by the FBI, institutionalized in the form of a special counsel. I mean, we've never seen anything like it. The 2 comic opera impeachments by the Democrats. And yet, Trump too was hated and reviled by the liberals. I thought when did I say that wrong? Reagan was hated too. When Reagan left office, I thought we would never again see hate like that directed at a president. Well, we didn't until Donald Trump came along. And so, but the point I make, in the end, I give Trump a B+. I think he was a very, very good president, as I say, best since Reagan. But I think in the end, he was brought down in part by his own defects of character and personality. And I think part of the reason why the haters couldn't destroy Reagan was his character, his equanimity, his obvious reasonableness, his fairness. In the end, I think voters realized Reagan was just a better man, than the people that were trying to destroy him. And I think a lot of voters didn't conclude that about Donald Trump. Now, I don't agree with them, but I think that his personality made him vulnerable. And in the end, the swamp won.
But Trump was part of he was one of the beautiful people for all those years. They loved him. He'd go on Howard Stern, who's become a beautiful person himself. And Ronald Reagan, I don't think he never believed he was part of the gang, right? I mean, they kicked Donald Trump down the stairs. Well, look at the Access Hollywood tape. They sat on that thing for 11 years.
Right.
Until right before the election.
Right.
And then they tried to stab him in the back with it.
Yeah, sure.
I don't blame him for I guess what I'm getting at, John, is I don't blame him for being angrier than Ronald Reagan was.
I don't blame him either. That's the thing. And a lot of people say, and I've said it myself, if he hadn't been combative, if he hadn't been willing to fight the press, he never would have gotten where he did. And
right.
That's true. But there's more to it, I'm afraid. He was wrong too often. He made too many mistakes, and he came across to too many voters as belligerent and egomaniacal. And in the end, there were too many voters who were willing to overlook his great accomplishments because they couldn't get past his personality. Now, I don't agree with that. Look, I voted for him enthusiastically twice. But nevertheless, the fact is that instead of seeing Donald Trump looking out at the prospect of another successful term in office, and think how much good he could have done in the last 4 years. A two-term president.
I mean, just keeping his fingers in all these dikes, like immigration and the Green New Deal and increasing taxes. I mean, he just would have kept the lid on this insanity that's now going to be unleashed.
And a two-term president can accomplish 3 times as much as a one-term president. That's how it works. There's a huge startup, involved there. So we missed out on that. We're missing out on a Trump second term, and I think that's kind of tragic. And I think that some of it has to do with Trump's own failings. So in the end, I gave him a B+, best president since Reagan by far. And yet, here we are looking at Joe Biden as our president.
I look forward to reading your column. You saw what what the National Review said about him. They have a story running on their website. Witless ape rides helicopter. Can you believe that?
Oh God! How did that happen, Howie? How did that happen? The flagship publication of the right for all those years just drove off the dock and into the bay.
I don't get it. I can't take them any more than I can take Fox. Witless ape. Are they happy now?
I understand the Democrats, right? They're in it for money and power. I understand. I can get that, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand the never Trumpers who call themselves conservatives, call themselves Republicans, and stab him in the back. Well, congratulations. Joe Biden is now our president.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sin in haste, repent at leisure. It's an old saying.
See how much leisure we have. Hey, Howie, to be macabre for a moment, what's the over-under on Joe Biden? How long is he going to serve as president?
That's our poll question today. 96% don't think he's going to make it to 2025. I don't think he's going to make it 2 years. Do you?
Well, that's the question. That's the over/under. He's not making it to 2025. I went the 96%, but how close does he come? I don't know. I don't know.
All right, John Hinderaker, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. And again, if you want, it's great reading every day. Powerlineblog.com. Thank you, John. We're all looking for ways to save money, right? Especially now. So let me ask you this. How'd you like to keep an extra $961 a year in your pocket? That's how much Gabby customers save per year on average on car and home insurance. That's why when I was shopping for insurance, I used Gabby. This is the time of year we go shopping for insurance. Well, Gabby takes the pain out of shopping for insurance by giving you an apples to apples comparison of your current coverage with 40 of the top insurance providers like Progressive, Nationwide, and Travelers. Just link your current insurance account, and in just minutes, you'll be able to see quotes for the exact same coverage that you currently have. That's what I did. It's fast. It was very easy to use, and I'm not very computer savvy. I was with my old insurance company, car insurance company, for more than 20 years. And, I just paid the premium every year when it would come. I never looked for anything new. I never realized that there were these changes that would have saved me money. I just kept overpaying year after year. It was laziness. Uh, yeah, I logged in with my current insurance. I was shown dozens of quotes, and I think Gabby ended up saving me over $500 just on my car insurance alone. I should have done it years earlier. As I mentioned earlier, on average, Gabby customers save $961 per year. I bet that'd be nice to have in your pocket every year. If they can't find you savings like they did for me, they'll let you know so you can relax knowing you have the best rate out there. And they'll never sell your info, so no annoying spam or robocalls. You're probably overpaying on car and home insurance. See how much Gabby can save you. It's totally free to check and there's no obligation. Go to Gabby.com/Howie. That's GABI.com/Howie. GABI.com/Howie. I'm Howie Carr.
He's the maestro.